guys, thanks for tuning in to another Triple Double podcast. My name is Corey Albertson of Triple Double Prospects. We've got Jason Morrow of 270 Hoops here as our producer. And today's guest is someone who has piqued my interest by liking all of our podcast-related tweets on Twitter. So we thought we'd give him some opportunity to express some of his craziness. Our guest is Coach Scott Kerr. Coach, what's up?
Corey, thanks a lot. I appreciate you having me on. If I'd have known it just took liking and retweeting, I would have got some burner accounts and done it a few more times, been on it a couple weeks earlier.
Oh, I mean, basically now that we do this, we're trying to become Hollywood. We're basically whores, man. So any retweeting, liking is going to get a opportunity to get a guest spot. So, Coach,
right, I'm to get those burner accounts rolling then.
There you go. Coach Kerr has been the head coach at Purcell Marian High School in Cincinnati for the last 4 years. Prior to that, spent 6 years as a head coach at Clark Montessori, also in Cincinnati, and just been in the high school coaching game in the greater Cincinnati, Middletown area for a long time, and is known as one of the high energy coaches in the world. So we'll start you off here, Coach. You took over at Purcell April 2014. Anybody listening to this podcast that's not familiar with Purcell Marian basketball, school with a tremendous basketball history at the small school level, Catholic school, great rivalries, Purcell, Roger Bacon, all that stuff. A lot of great history, a lot of great talent over the years has come through Purcell Marian. But when you took over April 2014, they've been struggling a little bit heading into that. You've turned it around quickly. You've turned it around with what I call the high energy approach. How'd you guys do it?
Well, I mean, I know that as a coach, you probably get a disproportionate share of the credit as well as a disproportionate share, or maybe a well-deserved share of the blame. But, you know, we were really, really fortunate. When I first took over at Purcell, number one, they had some really good returning kids coming up who'd been freshmen and sophomores. You know, Peyton Smith, Rashad Ali Shakir, Jamel Mono Howard.
Jordan.
Yeah, when he came over, that was the part that people don't know about that story is there were two reasons I even applied for the Purcell job. One was that a friend of mine who had coached with me before, was a Purcell alum, and he said, you know, you need to take this job. You can turn it around. About 2 weeks before that, Jordan's mother had come to me and said, hey, we're leaving Clark. Like, there's some issues that have nothing to do with you, but we got to get Jordan to a new place, and he's going to go to Purcell. So I get that news like 2 weeks before the job opens. When the job opens, my buddy calls and says, hey, guys. So I'm like, this might work out really well. So Jordan Gaines, you know, came with us. I was lucky enough to coach him all 4 years, actually. You know, people always, you know, people bandy about recruiting this, recruiting that, blah, blah, blah. Well, this was a case of like in reverse, like literally the fact that kid was going there drew my attention. So Jordan Gaines, and then we got, I leave out Shimon Reiner, was a senior who probably did the biggest 180 of any player I've ever coached from a buy-in standpoint. And that's kind of where we go with, you know, you call it the high energy approach, but before you can do the high energy, you have to get those guys to buy in. And we had some kids, a group of kids that was just super hungry for success. They were tired of getting kicked around. I think the year before I got to Purcell, they lost to Roger Bacon by 45 or 46 points. You know, they were tired of getting kicked around. They were really, really tired of getting kicked around. And I came in and, I mean, if I say this, people are going to get the wrong impression, but I kind of just tell kids, like, this is how I'm going to do it. This is how our program is going to operate in the classroom, on the court, in the off season. If you can't do that, then you need to transfer because you're not going to have a good experience. And I would rather be upfront with you and tell you the truth right now than have you come to me in the end of December and go, Coach, this isn't what you told us. Like, this is too hard. This is too whatever. You're too mean. I would rather just tell you up front, like, these are the expectations. If you don't like them, you got to go. Like, sorry, you need to transfer because you're not going to enjoy this. And there was actually a kid in that group that came. I don't want to mention names. I'm never going to throw a kid under the bus, but kid came in that group. He had started as a freshman and sophomore with them, and he never played one varsity minute for us when he was a junior. He actually was, played a couple games on the JV and just said, "Coach, this isn't for me. This isn't what I signed up for." So no hard feelings with that kid. Still talk to him today, but he just couldn't do what we were asking. So we got really, really fortunate that we had that group. I'm leaving out some important pieces: Landis Owensby, Liddell Donaldson, Jair Knox, Alex Batinghouse. That we just had a super group of kids that just bought into everything that we said. Like, you're tired of losing. Not that I have the magic formula, but I know that this formula will work if you follow it. And those guys just really, really bought in by, I'd have to go back and look at it, but I think after the turn of the year there to 2015, I'm not sure that we lost more than 3 or 4 games until the fiasco that took place at the end of the season there. So, we got lucky. Quite honestly, just, getting our kids to buy in and buy into what we were doing, and they were hungry for success. And I was kind of, as a coach, hungry to prove that, like, the style of basketball that I like the best could be successful in the GCL. A lot of people told me I was crazy, that you could never do what we do, play the way we play in the GCL. So I kind of wanted to prove some stuff, and they wanted to prove some stuff, and we just had this, really good synergy going on to build that winning program there that first year.
Well, anybody that said that you can't play the way you wanted to play must not have seen LaSalle play under Flem, because a lot of similarities there, but off topic.
It's carbon copy. You're correct.
Exactly. So I don't know why anybody would have ever said that, but you guys had a little more athleticism maybe than their guys. But, I've told people this when I've started the podcast, which I really try and look at whoever the guest is, look at their career in basketball, what type of topic we want to talk about, and some things that I identify with them when I think of, my friendships with them. And with you, I think of 3 things as a coach. Number 1, if you're coaching a kid, you're going to love the hell out of that kid. You're going to be the most fun guy to be around with that kid off the court. You're going to run through a wall, do anything for him. Number 2, you've had a lot of success with city kids, inner city kids, and, Purcell Marian being kind of an interesting situation. When you think of the private Catholic school, you think, well, you're going to have a lot of suburban kids with a lot of money. That's not the case at Purcell. No. And you've had a lot of success with city kids. But number 3, as much fun, as much as you love those kids, you are one of the more demanding coaches in the state of Ohio when it comes to the basketball end. No nonsense. But I want to go through 2 quick stories. 2 of my favorite Scott Kerr stories. Number 1, when the guys in Cincinnati started the Basketball Hustle TV station, and they do the game of the week. And I was at this game. You guys played, and Purcell had lost to Roger Bacon, like you said, by 40 the year before. Lost to him about 100 times in a row, and you guys beat him. And after the game, you're dancing to Kendrick Lamar in the locker room with your kids like you're just one of the kids. And then my other story is, and the video of that is hilarious. I was telling Jason, our producer, we might have to link that with the podcast. But then the second one was just this past March. You guys were playing in the district tournament, and you guys won the game, and you're cutting the nets down. Your kids are cutting the nets down. You haven't gotten to your part yet. And DJ Khaled, All I Do Is Win, comes on the speakers. And I'm looking at your kids, and your kids all know the chorus because it's such a famous song. But that song came out in like 2009 when I was in college. And there's only one person in the Purcell group that's celebrating, that's rapping every single word of the song.
Yep.
That's you, brother.
I was hitting that one, hitting down pretty good. We do you hit on some really important things, like, and I don't run from them, and I don't apologize. And I've interviewed for other head coaching jobs, in the past, whatever, and people will bring things up like, well, you seem like you're a really demanding guy. And I'm like, I am. I am a very demanding guy. I just feel like, you're going to win those games that are really tough if you're super demanding. So that doesn't mean that we're mean. Some people confuse the two, like, well, if you're demanding, you have to be mean, or you have to be demeaning to be demanding. And those are not, that couldn't be farther from the truth. We are very demanding with our guys, and we hold them to a certain standard in practice. we hold them to certain standards in games and in the classroom, the way they behave in the community. Like, we have really high standards, and I don't run from that. I really believe that if you set your standards there, you're actually going to attract the right type of kid to do what you want them to do. So I don't run from that. But the second part is, you said we're going to love them up and we're going to have fun. And I think, people, I don't know why, but people, I think, have this misguided notion of how hard it is to win high school basketball games, especially at the level of competition that we want to play at. We don't duck anybody. People call me crazy for our schedule. We're playing all 4 GCL South this year. We're playing Centerville. We're going up to a tournament in Akron, St. Vincent, St. Marian, playing some like Chaminade of Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. I don't know anything about them, but we're going to play them. We don't duck anybody. And so it's hard to win, not only in our league, it's hard to win these non-conference games. And when you win, like, you got to celebrate. So, we do the Ric Flair, we dance around, different song, whatever the kids are doing at the time. It is what it is. But, the kids have to see that part of it too. You tell them, work hard right now in practice. Come into practice and just wear yourself out so that when we get to the game, we can wear the other team out and win. And I just feel like that's part of, showing the kids that I know what they did was difficult. It was hard. It was something that not most kids are going to be willing to do. So now let's have a little bit of fun. And we always tell our guys, like, we win on Friday night. You get to enjoy it until it hits midnight. Then it's Saturday. It's a different day. We got to go attack that day and really look at, are we playing again? Who are we getting ready for next? We got to go attack it. So, those are some of the stuff that, a lot of people don't see. The basketball hustle thing, they were lucky enough to be in the locker room. That game against Roger Bacon was, really, really exciting. Just from a standpoint, we were up big, then we were down big, then we made a run to come back. And, and I think, I want to say it was like 9 years. Purcell hadn't beaten Roger Bacon in like 9 years. And the year before, we had them on the ropes over there and had a chance to win that one. Then we had them on the ropes at home. So it is what it is. But, yeah, we dance around. I'm not a very good dancer, but I can play one on TV, I guess.
It's supposed to be fun. And no matter how good your high school team is, you're still going to have so few kids that go on to play at the college level. This is their last basketball experience, and it's supposed to be fun. That's the whole idea of it. But again,
it's a game. At the end of the day, it's a game. Games are designed for people to have fun. At the end of the day, it's a game. And like you said, man, this is the vast majority. The stats will tell you whatever, like 4% go on to play college basketball. I've been lucky to be a little bit above that, but stats will say 4%. So, man, come on, let's have some fun. We won. It's hard. Let's dance. Let's sing. Let's rap. Let's do whatever. So it's fun. Sing a fight song. Do all that good stuff.
Right. But you're also, if you're going to have fun, they've got to earn that. It's got to be off of getting a lot of things done. And, having had one of your seniors this year on my AAU team the last 2 years, AJ Garrett, and one of my I'm not just saying this, one of my top 5 favorite kids to be around personally. I've driven him the most. I've driven him to most every practice and almost every tournament. So we've had a lot of time in the car just to talk. And, we always talk about, sometimes he'll tell me, it's like, well, Coach Kerr was really hard on me this week. And I always tell him, and he understands this, it's hard, as a kid, you go through emotional ups and downs. And I always tell him, he's not hard on you because he loves you. And AJ really understands that. But he's told me so many great stories about just, he said, if somebody on our team is screwing up in school, we're all afraid to go to practice that day because Coach Kerr might kill one of us. He's told us you got a lot of kids who are stubborn kids. Some of the city kids have kind of that extra bravado to them, and you've had to stand up to them and tell them, listen. You're a big guy. Listen, we're gonna do this my way. And it really, one of the things that I always talk about. We had Mark Mitchell on the podcast, maybe my favorite episode we've had so far. We talked about, with building culture in the inner city schools, you've got sometimes communities that are used to embracing excuses. And I grew up a Bearcat fan. Bob Huggins was the coach. And you hear guys who played for Hugs, they always tell you the same story, the same quote, which is Hugs always told them, no matter what your problem is, you can't get through a school this day. You can't, get your rehab done. You can't get this, amount of weight lifted off the bar, whatever. find a way. There's no excuses. Find a way. And I look at that as something that reminds me of what you guys are doing at Purcell. And then the other one of my really, really good friends, coaches, coached under you, now is the girls varsity coach over at Purcell, Jamar Mosley. And, Jamar is a guy, for people to know him, that's dealt with some tragedy in his life when he was younger. And he tweets, a huge tragedy. He tweets out, if not every day, he tweets almost every day. And it says, daily reminder, I am not a victim. And that's something I think you've really played up with all of your kids who've come from, all type of different backgrounds, is what you get at a school like a Purcell or Roger Bacon.
Yes, definitely. And we always try to tie the basketball experience back to real life, because, we talk about the number of kids that go to college, but the number of kids that are going to get paid to play basketball is even lower, And so if you're not going to get paid from doing all this work, it's not like a science class where you might become an engineer and get paid because you learned science. What can you learn from basketball that you can take with you? And I always try to talk to these guys. They're young men. And I say, look, one day you're going to be a father. You're going to be a husband. And there's going to be a wife or a kid, and they're going to look at you, and they're going to say, we need this. And are you going to look at them and say, well, I don't feel good today, so we don't get that? Or I'm not going to go try to get that because I don't feel – no, that's not an acceptable excuse. Or are you going to go to your employer and say, well, I got a headache today, so I think I'm just going to go like 50%. Well, you'll get fired. Or the other guy will get promoted, and you'll get so mad that you quit. And is that really a way to go through life? And, we just try to take all the basketball that we do and say, here's the real life application. Like right now, it's no fun to go to the weight room. We're fortunate enough at Purcell, a couple of years ago, I convinced the then AD to hire a strength coach and so we can lift more and do those types of things. So they started their 9-week fall strength and conditioning thing today. Well, nobody likes to be at those things. There's nobody clapping for you that's not on your team. There's nobody watching you. Your mom and dad aren't taking pictures of you in the weight room. But if you want to be good, you're going to do that. Well, fast forward to, that same story about life. If your family's depending on you to go out and get your paycheck, you can't say, well, because no one's watching me or clapping for me at work today, I'm not going to work real hard. I mean, Corey, you've had jobs where, like, people demand high things of you. Can you go in and say, I just don't feel like going real hard today at work, so I'm going to take it easy. And, boss, I hope you understand. I got to go take it easy today.
And unfortunately, that's the millennial approach, unfortunately, as well.
Yes, big time. And so, we really, and I think you talk again, man, so much stuff you said is like really intertwined and talking about culture building and stuff like that. But that is what helps you get that culture of just no excuses. Like, we're just not going to accept them, because at some point in your life, you're going to have to stand there and you're going to have to do what you have to do for your family or for your son or for your daughter or for your mom or for your grandma, for somebody, your neighbor, whatever. And if you're just going to make excuses all the time, like, that'll just keep bleeding over and bleeding over and bleeding over. At some point, you got to stand up and say, all right, I've had enough of that. I'm an adult. This is what I learned in basketball. It's not fun. It's not going to be glamorous, but I'm going to do it right now so the people that I love are going to be happy and safe later on down the road.
Absolutely. And with somebody like you, my understanding of what you do outside of basketball, you're in those similar situations day in and day out during the school year with kids who don't play basketball.
Yeah. I mean, it's I teach at Live Oaks in Milford, and so it's a very different clientele with very similar issues. So I mentor kids at school the same basic way. Just basketball is not the carrot. I got to try and trick these kids into understanding these lessons, and then there's kids at school that. Again, I don't like to mention any names, but there's kids at Purcell that don't even play basketball that come up to me and talk, and this is what I learned from watching you coach. And, just as a story, last year, we're at a basketball game, and it was shortly after the stuff that happened at the Elder St. X game where some things were said that were really inappropriate. We're playing a team. They had a guy that was not, I hate to say use the word American, but not Caucasian necessarily, and our fans said something to him, and they were some football players, and we lift a lot together. The football, basketball guys lift a lot together.
It's a small school too.
Small school. So, these guys, either they don't play. And, I do the football broadcast a lot of times. And so I know a lot. And it was during a JV game. They say something to this kid. And I just turned around and said, hey, this is not acceptable. This is not how we're going to act. This doesn't represent our school. If you're going to continue to do that, man, you got to go. Now, the normal high school kid would probably look at you and be like, oh, F you or whatever. You're not in charge of me right now, blah, blah. That kid, he said, my bad, coach. We play the game. Comes up to me after the game, and I'm talking about well after the game. You've been in our gyms before. I don't come right out. I talk to the kids after the game in the locker room. It's not like the game's over, we have a 2-minute talk, and I pop out. We talk to the team, then we talk to the individuals. I talk to the coaches, whatever. He probably waited 30 minutes after the game to come up and say, Coach, you were right. I shouldn't have said that. It was inappropriate. I won't do it again. Thank you for telling me to not keep doing it because I would have kept doing it. And that's just the type of stuff that, I'm glad that particular kid understands that what we're trying to do is bigger than just play basketball or win basketball or do whatever. It's about teaching how to treat other people correctly, how to treat people with the spirit of what the mission of our school is, which, it's a private Catholic school. We're trying to teach kids to live by core values that Jesus lived by. And it's important that you do that all the time. And, so it was just neat that kid understood that as well. So
is it difficult?
Really cool
is it difficult doing that? Most high school coaches are in the building. You're not in the building. You said you coach, 20, 25-minute drive from there. Or you don't coach, you teach 20 or 25-minute drive from there. So is it a different experience not being in the building?
It is a different experience. I was a head coach at Marymount for a few years, my first head coaching job, and I was in the building, and we didn't do real well, and it is what it is, and we just moved on. Some of the stuff you've already kind of hit on, nothing against Marymount, love my time there, but there weren't enough people that thought like me. I'm crazy about basketball. You know this. I'm not shining light on anything new, but I love basketball. I just came from the Friars Club tryouts. I love basketball. I love being around basketball. And it's been helpful that the schools I've coached at Clark and at Purcell, there's a core group of kids that I can find that are just as crazy about basketball as I am. So, that is just this huge thing. But I do try to reach out to, at Purcell, the other groups, the other kids. Like I said, I do the football broadcast. So, we talk to some of the football players and the football coaches. We have that weight program where we see them in the off season. I go out and stand and watch football practice. We have guys that play soccer, play baseball. We try to catch those games as often as we can. Well, you're not just building a relationship with your individual player in that case, because your individual, the basketball guy that plays baseball, let's say, you go to the baseball game, you don't end up just talking to that one kid. You talk to 5 or 6. They all come over together. Hey, what's up, coach? How you doing? Thanks for coming. And you start to build those relationships. So it's different. I can't do it in the hallway. I can't do it at lunch. I have to do it in other ways. And so it's a different experience. But it just goes back to the core thing you said. You got to show kids you care about them as more than just a student at Purcell or more than just a basketball player at Purcell. You got to really care about their life in general and as a whole situation. It just, you engender some goodwill. It helps that we win. I'm not going to disguise that fact. It helps that we've had a successful basketball program. We've had great basketball players and been successful. So the kids get very interested. They come up at our games, after the games, people shake my hand, high five me, whatever. So that helps, but it's definitely, building those relationships with the rest of the student body when you're not in the building is definitely a lot harder than if you're in the building. It's a different experience, and you really have to be very intentional about what you do when you try to build those relationships.
Well, let's talk about another obstacle. And again, we're talking about finding a way. We're talking about the concept of not using excuses. And in looking at that, one of the potential excuses if somebody was trying to find one for why kids wouldn't end up being as successful on the basketball court or having the opportunity to play college basketball, is that Purcell Marian, for as successful as they've been in the basketball world in Cincinnati, Southwest Ohio, and all of Ohio, it's a Division III high school out of 4 divisions.
Right.
And then,
Right.
You really harped on the fact earlier that you guys don't hide from anybody. You get to play the Division I Catholic schools. It's such a unique league where even though it's broken into divisions, you've got, major Division I school like St. X, which is always in the top 3, if not number 1 or 2 for most boys enrolled at the entire school, and you guys get to play them. So, how do you manage that? Is it an us against the world type of mantra?
I mean, I hate to say it that way, but yes, it kind of is. We talk about, look, you guys want to tell everybody how good you are. Like that's most kids, they want to tell everybody, well, we're this good. We're this good. Okay, well, we're going to go prove it and we're going to find out. And the other unique thing about our schedule right now is, we only play 10 league games. Now it's going to change next year. We're going to go to a complete round robin in basketball, so that's going to change a little bit. But right now we have 10 league games and 12 non-league games. And so our goal at the end of the day is to get as deep in the state tournament as we can. So I need to test us against schools that, quite honestly, should beat us if we play them. And so, we always have played Elder. Elder was like the one constant that never dropped off the schedule. We added LaSalle, then we added Moeller, and now we got St. X. We just because of some stuff that happened with Centerville prior to last season, the 17-18 season, they thought they were going to be in Flying to Hoop, didn't. Obviously, signals got crossed. They needed a game at a last minute. We had a school that came and said, look, we really don't want to play you anymore. So it just worked out that we added Centerville, which is another, they got what's the kid? I forget his name, the tall center.
Mo and Jai.
Mo and Jai. Not like they're a pushover, just for the record. We add them, and we tell our guys, this is your chance to prove how good you really are. Because you're 100% right, Corey. People look at us and they're like, oh, and I got coaching friends that say it, and I know they say it in jest, but if your friends are saying it in jest, there are probably people who aren't quite so friendly to you, and they're saying it in all seriousness. And they say, well, it's easy to win down there in Division IX. It's easy to win in Division IX. And I get it. You coach at a Division I school. You got this guy playing at this school right now. Okay, I get it. You're joking with me. But there are a lot of people who look at it that way. So,
but people don't know, Coach. People don't know how competitive Division III basketball is. Not just in Cincinnati, in Dayton, where it's been really good. Division II and Division III. But the state champion just came from down here. Roger Bacon's been to the Final Four 100 times because my school, Summit, can never beat him. But you look at Summit, Purcell, Bacon.
Well, hold on. Summit does have a state title in the not too distant past there. No, let's not leave that one out.
We got one. We got one. We got one. But no, it's the basketball is so good down here in the Southwest, and what it is it's just like Division I. You've got the same group of schools for the most part that competes year in and year out. You've got that in Division III as well, and I think there's a huge advantage there. There are some schools like, let's say, Roger Bacon and Purcell Marian. When it comes to the playoffs, they've played Division I schools all year. Not a big deal. They play in the GCL. There are some other schools maybe like in the CHL. I'm not any shot at those schools, but just scheduling restrictions, conference games, the way things work, they haven't had those opportunities to play Division I teams, or maybe they played one of them. That's a huge advantage to you guys come playoff time, right?
Yeah, it is. There's two kind of schools of thought on scheduling and how to build confidence. You have some coaches who schedule for wins and then say, because we're winning, our guys will be more confident that when they get to that game and they have to beat a better team, we believe that we're winners and we'll go win the game. That's one theory. then there's kind of my theory that I subscribe to, and that is you better play the best teams possible, because when you get to the playoffs, and especially deep, we've been fortunate. We've won 3 district championships in my 4 years at Purcell. We've been very fortunate with our players and having great players more than great coaching. But my guys believe when we go into the tournament that no matter how good these other teams are, we're playing like, Coach, we've played better. And in many cases, we haven't just played better teams, we've beaten better teams this year. So let's go take care of this and win this game. So, there's just this, like, we don't dodge anybody for that reason. I just feel like the way you build confidence, especially deeper into the tournament, is to be able to look at your guys and say, look, yep, this team's really good. This team, we played Anna last year, and let me tell you something, man. That Anna team was really, really good. But we could look at our guys and go, hey, they are really good, but we played better. We played better teams that execute than Anna, and Anna execute, just really, really well all game long. So, you got those two kind of things, and it helps that and I wish we could continue this. Last year was the first year that we did this, where we played all of our league games on Friday nights. You've been to our league games on Friday nights. You've been to other teams in our league on Friday nights. It doesn't matter where you play, Cincinnati, Dayton, Close, Roger Bacon, McNick, whoever, the gyms are packed.
The game that you guys had the Kendrick Lamar rap, I was at the game, and I showed up for the beginning of the JV game, and because I knew it was going to be crowded, and I still was in the top row behind the student section and could barely see. And I had to move on the court, standing on the corner of the court with 1 foot inside, 1 foot outside of the gym. So yeah, absolutely.
It was, and that's that's the other huge advantage is in our league. If we play these Friday night games and continue them, I hope we find a way. I'm not going to toot my own horn too much, but I've presented a schedule. I don't know if they're going to do it where all of our league games will be Friday and Saturday nights to reduce travel, play doubleheaders with girls and some other stuff. I don't know if they're going to do that, but anyway, those Friday night games, man, they are flat out packed, and you're in front of this like hostile crowd for half those games. So when you go play the tournament, even when the other fan base is big, like our guys just aren't intimidated. We're not intimidated by the surroundings and by the game, and so we don't duck anybody for that reason. We play a super competitive league, and we play teams out of the league where I can just look at our guys and go, we played better. Yes, they're good. They're really good. And we lost to Deer Park in the regional semifinals. Yeah, Deer Park's really good, but I'm not convinced we didn't play a better team last year in Moeller. So, no offense to Deer Park. I love
No, Moeller was the best team in the state. Right.
Yeah, right. So, we play teams that are this good. We've hung with teams that are this good. Moeller didn't blow us out, So we just got to go out and do the job. No disrespect to anybody that we play or any of their teams, but, man, we play a really tough schedule. We won over in the pit. That's not easy to do. I don't care who you are. Like that ain't easy. So we can play with these teams. It doesn't matter who they are, how good people say they are. So.
Right. Well, the last thing I want to talk to you about is kind of a basketball current events, and it's something with every high school coach I've had on here so far. I think we've had 3. I don't think we've had more than 3. We've talked about Division I high school basketball, Division III high school basketball. And this stuff happens at Division I, but Division III high school basketball, there's a lot of chatter. Some of it's BS, some of it's legitimate about recruiting and transferring. And, it's been brought up both ways with Purcell. It's been brought up both ways with some of the other schools we've mentioned. Just talk about your views on all that stuff that's going on.
It's, we have been accused of recruiting. We have been like the victim of losing kids. I don't really call it recruiting. You really won't hear me complain a whole lot about kids coming and going from our school, because I don't ever feel like we own them, I guess, for lack of a better term. Like, I don't own these kids. Our school doesn't own these kids. So there's kind of that side to it. There are people that have accused different schools of using the transfer rules to their advantage. I look at it like this. At the end of the day, if you really want to win a state championship, you're going to have to beat a pretty good team one way or the other. Does it really matter which team you have to beat if you're trying to win a state title? Now, if you just want to win a league championship, that's something different. You might complain about transfers from whatever reason because you're trying to win a league title. And if these kids didn't transfer, then you wouldn't have to play them. I get that whole part. But when you're trying to win a tournament, like, are you telling me – so last year we lose to Deer Park in the regional semifinals. People accuse them of all sorts of things. Okay, whatever, cool. So you're telling me that if Deer Park wasn't the team we played in the regional semifinals, we would have played a pushover? Like, I don't think so. If we go up to Columbus, let's say we were fortunate enough to win and go to Columbus, you're going to tell me that Lutheran East was a pushover or Afrocentric was a pushover? Come on, man. If you're going to win in the tournament, deep in the tournament, you're going to play a good team no matter what. Does it matter what the front of their jersey says? To me, the answer is no. So, and the funny part is, so let's go back to this situation from a couple years ago where we got removed from the tournament because we played an ineligible player that came off of a transfer. If you can text that kid, that family, and say, when was the first time you ever talked to Coach Kerr? The answer would be the day that we transferred into the school. I had no clue that the kid was coming to Purcell. And we've been fortunate. We've gotten some transfers. We got a kid a couple of years ago who was a very, very good high school player. My wife and I were returning. We'd gone over to London and Paris, and we were coming back. And when we were overseas, I'm a cheapskate, dude. I'll admit to it. I turned off our phones. Like, I'm not going to pay to use my phone for a week. We'll use Wi-Fi when we can, and we'll send messages on Facebook or whatever, okay? So we get back. We land in Boston. I turn my phone on, and my phone just blows up with, like, voicemails. There's, like, 7 voicemails, and it's like Peyton Smith says, Coach, you need to call me right now. There's this kid that wants to come to Purcell. He's going to go enroll today. Now, I'm in London when this all goes down. The next couple calls are from, like, the principal, the director of admissions. Then Peyton calls again and says, Coach, he's already enrolled. He's good to go. And then, I call Peyton back. I call the AD, the director of admissions, whatever, back. And then I get back to Cincinnati, and people are like, well, it must be nice to be able to go out and recruit this kid that does this or whatever. And I'm like, well, unless I got some I probably need to get a college job then, because if I can recruit overseas with my phone turned off, what could I do if I was actually, like, in the country and could talk to people? Shoot, I need to hurry up and get my resume ready, I guess, for a college.
And nobody knows. I know the family. Nobody knows the circumstances behind all that as well. Yeah. And that's one of the the small school thing can be so great. The Catholic school or small town neighborhood schools, it's so great. Everybody knows each other. The community's great. But when there are negative rumors, they turn vicious. And I mean, that's not fun for anybody, especially when you're dealing with kids.
No, and that's. Look, at the end of the day, if you're not coaching for kids, like if that's not your motivation, is to provide kids with the best experience they can have with high school basketball, then you're probably not coaching for the right reasons. Like, I've been chasing a state championship for years and years and years and years. I'm closer to the end of my coaching career than I am at the beginning, and man, I want to win a state championship more than anything. But if the decision comes down to do what's right by a kid or win a state championship, I'll do what's right for a kid every single day over win that state championship. Like, yep, I'll look back at my life and then say, well, I wish I would have won one, but it's even better when that kid that I did what was right for texts me back and says, hey, Coach, and you get this too, Corey, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Hey, you guys, the kid texts you back just out of the blue like, Coach, I just want to say thank you because this just happened and it's exactly what you told me and I knew what to do and I'm so happy that you did. You get those texts, and so it's like, yeah, that state championship would be really, really cool, but way more cool than the state championship is the relationship you have with these former players that know you were coaching for the right reasons. And that I don't I'd love to win a state championship, but I'm going to do what's right for kids before I do what's right for me winning a state championship so I can feel better about myself. Like I don't have to win a state championship to feel like I'm doing the right thing, as long as I'm taking these kids and doing what I'm supposed to do with them to help them so later in life they can be successful.
And that's one of the things I look for. I mean, as an AAU guy, somebody tries to kind of help kids and has worked with especially a lot of the inner city kids, but it's also something I look for as a scout. And, you know, not to toot my own horn, you know, like I know a whole lot about coaching, but when I am typing up try and type up a really detailed evaluation of all the guys I think are college prospects after every game. So, you know, after that Purcell Marian Roger Bacon game, probably had 10, 12 kids, you know, put a little paragraph together, send it out to all the colleges that subscribe to my service. And one thing I'm going to write, and it's about both of those teams because Brian Neal at Bacon does a great job, is I'm going to write in there on a lot of those kids that the advantage of recruiting this kid over another kid is they've been coached in an atmosphere that's conducive to what they'll experience at the college level. You see that with Moeller. You see that with, you know, some of the GMC, like a Lakota East. You see it with like a Walnut Hills. You know, those kids being a little more ready. I always am going to include that stuff because, you know, an AAU game, a college coach is going to be very quick to be able to say, well, this kid's 6'4", he's long, he's athletic.
Right.
You know, but what else do we know about him? And I can tell that coach, well, you know, he plays for a high school coach where it's not super organized and he's going to have a tough first year, but that talent is so untapped. Or I'm going to say, well, this guy has really been pushed the right way. He understands what to do and he's going to, gravitate towards that upperclassmen leadership as a freshman at your school.
Yeah, I got one of the neatest emails from a college coach last year about one of our former players. This guy played on some of our really good teams, and then he took a year off and just went to school, decided he wanted to go back and play basketball, and then he got into a really good Division III program. And about halfway through January, I just got this message out of the blue from his college coach and just said, "Hey, coach, I know we haven't formally met, but I just want to reach out and tell you about this kid, and you could just tell that he's really been coached the right way." And again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I get, whatever, but
no, I mean, there's a lot of guys that do it. Right.
But this kid's been coached, and here's how I knew. And the example he gave was, he said, this kid went through a really rough patch. He started the season really well, and then he went through a rough patch. And instead of hanging his head and feeling sorry for himself and getting that self-fulfilling prophecy going, he just worked and got himself right back in the rotation. He said, "I can
find a way
that you, you can't make an excuse. You got to do what's right." So that was really, really kind of goes to what you're saying. There are programs around the city where you can get that kid that isn't going to be, and I hate to say it this way, but isn't going to be transfer happy because he goes somewhere and the coach yells at him. And we've seen guys, you've seen guys, I've seen guys that have been. They've gone somewhere, they've had undeniable talent, but for whatever reason, they weren't able to handle the rigors, and suddenly they're trying to transfer down or transfer over or do whatever. So, and
I mean, our culture here in Cincinnati can be really negative in basketball, and those kids generally don't do well. They don't tap into their talent because of that, and it tends to be, without naming any names, an example of kids just being coddled. And if a kid is talented enough that they still make it to the college level through all that crap, they're never going to have success at the college level because of they don't understand going into college basketball, the dedication level you have to it.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. The basketball culture in Cincinnati, I mean, it is cutthroat to the point where some coaches feel like they have to coddle guys to keep them at their school, quite honestly. I don't want to make this guy mad because he might transfer over there. And, my attitude has kind of been like, that's not helping the kid down the road if you just coddle him so you can keep him to yourself. Like, you know what I'm talking about here, and I hope the people that are listening kind of understand that. I just think if you set your standards high for kids, you're going to get the right type of kid. That kid is going to learn how to set those or handle those high standards in other aspects of their life, whether they are fortunate enough to go play college basketball or whether they have to go get a job or whatever it may be. And I think that's just, you're trying to help these kids win the rest of their life. You're not just trying to help them win a basketball game. I hope. So, if that's the real goal, to help these kids win at life, then I got to teach them how to handle those high standards from people and not be afraid if a kid says, "I can't handle it, I have to leave." Okay. No. It's not personal, man. It's not personal. So,
well, that's exactly, that's exactly why, I said we've had a good relationship for years, going back to when you were at Clark, and I always enjoyed coaching your kids in AAU because I always want to pick guys for AAU that I know have been through a high school coaching situation where, they're ready for all that AAU entails, and there's some, pros and cons to that, but that's exactly what I wanted to talk about today. Really, I like talking about the culture building for high school coaches, looking at different dynamics. Like I said, we had Carl Kramer on here looking at, the Catholic school out of suburban kids. We had Mark Mitchell talking about inner city situation. Purcell Marian, you've got some of both. It's a more complicated dynamic. So that was really great. And I want to thank you for coming on, Coach.
No, I really appreciate it, Corey, and I really appreciate what you do for the kids in Cincinnati. I know it's tough when you put yourself out there and you try and say this kid, I get it. That's tough. I really appreciate what you do for basketball in general. In Cincinnati, you're trying to bring awareness to some of these kids that otherwise probably get overlooked. And people probably don't tell you thanks enough. So I'm going to tell you thanks right now. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate that. Well, guys, that was Coach Scott Kerr from Cincinnati Purcell Marian. We didn't talk about this. I didn't, want to jinx them, but they might be the preseason favorite in Ohio in Division III. They've got all their kids coming back. They've got I'm serious. They got a hell of a team this year. So fans of Ohio high school basketball are going to be seeing them more. So that was the Triple Double podcast. Again, Coach Scott Kerr. For Jason Morrow, my name's Corey Albertson. Thanks for listening, guys.